So, welcome back to my channel. I am Holly Hughes Intuitive. I'm an author and a healer, and I'm here with someone who I met a few months ago and who made such an impression on me. I asked if he would speak with me. So, this is my new friend, Jason. Jason, take it away.
Good morning,
Introduce
Holly.
yourself.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for having me on. We met at FinCon. That was a conference that was talking about financial literacy. And that was something that I was interested in as a dentist because I have a show myself called the Happier Dentist Podcast. And I think part of happiness is becoming financially literate and being able to share that information with my guests, my audience. I think would help unlock the next version of themselves. And so that's why I was there. And so I was really grateful to be a part of that community and meet people like you. So thank you so much for this invitation. I'm really, really honored. Thank you.
I'm so glad. So, I want to tell everyone what I find so amazing about Jason is in a room of 10,000 people, because there were 10,000 people between the three conferences in the place that we're at, you were really good at holding your space, in holding your intention, and making like genuine connections in a sea of a lot of information, a lot of people trying to sell you stuff. But you were like, I was watching you even when we weren't speaking, and you're amazing at maintaining eye contact and getting to know the person in front of you. And it's a gift. So like I hope your podcast just blows up insanely, because I think your voice is really needed in the world right now, on personal level, just as much as I knew you. I just thought I'd tell you that as well.
Thank you.
I invited you here today because October, I'm a huge Halloween fan. Like I have things all around me. They're just not in camera. And I have like
Love it.
12 skeletons climbing over my house right now. But
Love it.
I want to talk about fear. Like I am a dentaphobe, and it takes me all sorts of breathing to be able to sit in a chair, because for me, it's about trust. And when I was younger, I had a bunch of surgeries, and I was like, I feel pain. And the dentist was like, you can't possibly feel pain. And I was like, but I do. I feel pain. And then I think as an adult, when I found a much better dentist in one of my root canals, which I know is your specialty, I was like, I jerked because they hit a nerve. And they're like, you have an extra nerve in your tooth that we can't believe is there. And I was like, well, I think I must have many, because that's probably why I feel the pain the way I do. But I finally felt heard and safe. So that's a long story to get to. Like, how do you make space and hold space for fear as a dentist? Like in your life, you are, I think dentistry is super intimate, right? Like you're leaning close, you're in personal space, you're in people's mouths. That's as pretty much as personal as I think you get. So what have you come up against in your practice and in your work? And how does fear like take a part of it, or how do you ease it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that I really see every single day that I practice because, you know, as you said, I'm a root canal specialist. So there's a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety associated with that one procedure. Just the word alone can cause somebody or trigger somebody to feel a little bit of pain or fear or anxiety. And so we get that story all the time. When I first got out of school, I was a general dentist and we weren't really taught any of the soft skills there. And so what ends up happening is you go out and you realize like you have three, four, $500,000 of dental school loan debt, and you just think that I just have to do procedures. I've got to fill teeth, I've got to do root canals, I've got to do crowns, I got to do whatever it takes to make some money to pay off my loans and allow me to live a little bit of a life too. And so coming out of school, there's a lot of that happening. And so I didn't really understand that until I became an endodontist. And there's a very different perspective as an endodontist sitting in that chair, listening to those patients coming to you for that one specific reason. Um, and I think really the one word that you could kind of define it as just being curious. And for me, that really helps if a patient says, like, I'm really scared of the dentist, or I haven't been in 10 years, or,
Mm.
whatever that's like, then I like to ask why, what happened there? Because when you find out the reason somebody had that, some of these fears are held for 30 to 40, 50 years, and they remember the person that, hurt them that long ago. And so that prevents you from going to the dental office. And that's the reason why it's important for me, is because if that prevents you from coming to the dental office to take care of pain, and you can't think at night, you can't sleep, you can't, think clear headed, then there's these bad negative ripple effects that happen. You can't be a good parent. You can't be present in the moment. You can't do good, jobs You
You
can't,
can't
and you can't
eat.
be, yeah, you can't eat. You don't have the health and nutrition. There's like literally nothing can happen because of like this pain that you have. And you're so fearful of that procedure or the person behind the procedure that you're willing to just let that go. And so that's a really tough place to be, I think, for a lot of patients. So I just want to know why, what happened, what was said to you, what happened that made you fear the dentist or the doctor so much that you're just preventing yourself from taking care of yourself and being the best person that you can be. And so when I ask that question, that really starts to unlock a lot of stories, and like whether it happened or not, it happened in their head. And
Mhm.
so I want to know what that's like for them. And then I want to reassure them that it's not going to happen in my chair. Like that's not my intention, is for them to experience anything like that ever again, especially with me. And so when they feel that, because you're right, it is a very intimate experience, I'm in their personal space, laying back. That's also a very like intimidating position to be in sometimes. I did have some female patients that shared with me that they were abused. And so for those kinds of scenarios, I want to give them the option to see somebody that was, a little bit different for me as well. And so, but when you speak to them in that way, they typically will like let you know what's on their mind. And if you keep on asking questions and being curious and digging a little bit deeper, then you do build connection and trust. And so my thing about like when I'm teaching my course on how to do root canals is when that patient is comfortable in your chair, they're not going to be making 60 reasons to get out of that chair and disrupting your thought process 20,000 different times too. And so, so you want to make them comfortable and you want to have that connection with them. And that doesn't, not everyone has that intention, I think.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to practice in the best way possible and treat the patient in the best way possible, and to go home feeling in the best way possible too, like about what you did that day, I think it really starts with being curious and then building that connection and trust. It takes the relationship to a whole nother level, and then yeah, so then you can do what you do as a dentist.
Kind of curious, did you even know that you would have to manage that much fear when you first started?
Not at all. I think that was the biggest source of burnout for me, and I,
Mm.
as a general dentist, you hear it on occasion. You hear like, I hate the dentist, I don't want to be here. You hear that on occasion. As an endodontist, you hear that every single day, and
Mm.
sometimes all day. And so I didn't realize that first before even being, like when I was a general dentist, I did a lot of root canals, and that was a different scenario, I guess. But being a specialist, you get sent the hardest of the hard, not just clinically, but psychologically too. And so no one no one really teaches you that. I mean, they tell you it's tough, but you don't really know what that's like until you do it. And so no, for me, I didn't know that right away.
That's just so crazy. I think the other really amazing thing or curious thing about dentistry, it's the sounds,
Mm.
right?
Oh
Aren't the
yeah.
sounds pretty scary? Like the drill is
Yeah.
kind of scary. It's not a sound you hear every day.
Well, this is something I think about all the time because in media, when dentists are portrayed, it's typically a scary thing. It's not a nice dentist, it's the scary dentist. And what do? They really amp up those sounds of the drill,
Mhm.
high speed whine, and the suction, and like all these different sounds that you're going to hear at the dental office typically. And some of the newer, more modern offices, yes, they might use electric handpieces, for example, which are a little bit quieter, but you're still going to hear those sounds even at a muted level. And what I think is so important is the environment that you're going into. And a lot of that is muting those sounds. Like in the dental office, what I observe is you'll see these machines that are on the countertop
Mhm.
and they could be tucked away into a cabinet. So reducing those sounds that you feel like you're just throwing things on a metal tray and they're clanging and they're making all this noise. And when patients have like kind of like a sensitivity to increased amounts of sounds, that adds to the stress. It's noise pollution at the end of the day. And noise pollution is a real thing that causes stress. So if we can try to eliminate those sounds or just mute them as much as possible, it makes the patient feel more comfortable. And so I think sound is a huge thing. Absolutely.
Okay, so the other thing is because I know that you're sensitive, you're very energetically open, is how I would put it. So, what do you do with that you absorb? Because I feel like the position you're in has to be hard on your body, right? Like
Mm.
the working in such a tight space and the leaning and stuff. And so, if you're that close and you're sensitive, which you are, so I think you're an empath. I know you're an empath. So, how do you clear that for yourself before, like, when you leave the office? Like, what are you doing to take care of yourself to manage that?
Wow, that's a great question. That's something that I haven't really started doing until recently. I'm 42 now, but once I got to a certain age, you just realize like things hurt, they hurt more, or they don't bounce back as quickly, especially if you want to continue living an active lifestyle. It's compounded wear and tear on your body. And so and then you don't realize that working as a dentist, because it is easy at first. Like it is, like you're just naturally, like your body's okay with that kind of stuff. But when you stack on all these different things and then there's age on top of it, it becomes really tough. And so hearing is absolutely one of those things too. I noticed that when I was younger, my mom is a dentist too, and she's retired now, but she slowly started to lose her hearing over time, because that was back in the age where things were really loud and really close to your head. And so she did kind of like suffer a little bit of hearing loss. And so I realized that for me, I wear earplugs at work because if I'm working
Mm.
in an office and not every handpiece is well tuned, I wear earplugs because it's super loud pitch, high pitch and loud, excuse me, and it just kind of drowns it down. I can still hear most things going on. They do have electronic ones where you can tune out certain frequencies. That's
Hmm.
really important. I encourage my assistants and my patients also to wear some kind of ear protection or listen to music or do something else that's going to kind of take their mind away from it. And then I also live in an environment that's super quiet. I live in the mountains. And so for me, like it's really, really quiet. All I hear is the wind, maybe a couple of helicopters and planes on occasion, and some animals. And so for me, like that kind of environment that I'm working in and going home into like a really quiet environment helps me kind of like de-stress in a way. And so for me, but the biggest thing is just wearing earplugs at work while I'm doing treatment so that it tunes out some of those sounds. And that's helped a lot for me. I think it's reduced a lot of stress.
Yeah, did you know, like, so I'm really into binaural
Mhm.
sounds, so it's alpha, theta, whatever. So I there's some that irritate me. They just sound awful to me, but the one that feels most like me is theta. And then I had looked it up. I
Mhm.
was like, well, why do I like that so much? It is the your brain pattern in deep meditation. And so that might be an interesting sound in your office, like to play
Yeah.
with what will help bring peace. I'd be super curious about that. You're going to have to sneak that sound in one day and let me know how it goes.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I went to a sound healing ceremony,
Yay.
and somebody who was hosting it is from the Philippines. So she was bringing back some tribal Philippine sounds and sound healing. She had these really amazing crystal bowls. And I thought, how cool would that be to introduce that into a dental office? Maybe because she talked about having a soundtrack on
Hmm.
Spotify. And so
It's
what if we
amazing.
could take a patient through a journey of sound healing as they're there, whether it's in the waiting room or while they're doing treatment, just so that they can relax their body using those natural states.
Okay, so one of my best friends is a sound healer. I met her.
Wow,
We met in a yoga retreat in Brazil like
love
20
that.
years ago.
Wow.
I know it's crazy. She's like a sister to me now, but she did the whole yoga journey. When I met her, she was a bartender, and then was into all this other healing modalities. I used to call her my amplifier because whenever she was around me, I would my gifts, I didn't have exactly a control like I do now. And so when she was near me, I would see and hear more. I'd be like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Or we would see the same things clairvoyantly in our minds and we would talk
Mm,
about it. So that was fun.
amazing.
But she now teaches sound baths and she has created her own gongs
That's so cool.
with their own sound with two different companies in Europe. Like it's super cool. So I am a big believer of that. I know that's kind of super woo woo and it could be hard for people, but sound impacts your body.
Mm,
It's a wave of energy. So I love the idea. I even love the Filipino thing in there. I think because
yeah,
each sound is so unique to cultures too.
totally. Yeah, I
Like I
think
could
that's
go
so
on a
cool.
deep down on that one. I love that.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's not for everybody, and maybe they don't know it's for them just yet. But maybe if we can help introduce that to them, and they can see the benefits of it there in an environment that they know they're going to be stressed out in, then that could be really beneficial for everybody. So I think
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
really
So